Yuna pressed her face against the cold window of the transport ship. Stars stretched into lines as they moved through hyperspace. Her stomach felt sick from the strange gravity, but she could not look away. In 3 hours she would arrive at Galactic Collegiate Institute. She would be the only human there. Her mother had cried when Yuna left Earth. "You are so brave," she had said. "Make us proud." But now, floating through space toward a school full of aliens, Yuna did not feel brave. She felt small and scared. The transport ship dropped out of hyperspace with a loud bang. Through the window, Yuna saw the biggest thing she had ever seen. Station Kepler 442 looked like a metal city floating in space. Lights blinked on its surface like stars. Ships moved around it like tiny bugs. "First time seeing a Class A station?" asked the pilot. He was human too, which made Yuna feel a little better. "Wait until you see the inside." The pilot was right. When Yuna walked off the ship, her mouth fell open. The station was like a huge tube that spun slowly. Buildings hung from the walls. Gardens grew upside down above her head. And everywhere she looked there were aliens. A creature that looked like a walking tree checked her papers. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Yuna Kim, human exchange student. Dorm level 7, section C." Yuna picked up her 2 small bags. Everything she owned fit inside them. Around her, other students moved with confidence. They floated, crawled, rolled, and walked in ways that made no sense to her. Some talked without moving their mouths. Others changed colors to speak. She found her room after getting lost twice. The door opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the walls glowed with a gentle blue light. A bed hung from the ceiling. The desk looked like it was made of liquid metal that had frozen into shape. Yuna sat on the strange bed and looked around. Everything felt wrong. The air smelled like flowers and metal. The gravity was too light. Even the walls hummed with energy she could not understand. A soft knock came at the door. When it opened, Yuna saw something that looked like a large blue jellyfish floating in the air. It had many long arms that moved like they were underwater. "Hello," it said in perfect English though it had no mouth. "I am Brix. I live next door. Are you the human everyone talks about?" Yuna nodded. "Yes, I am Yuna." "How exciting. I have never met a human before. Your species just joined the galactic community, yes? 5 years ago." "Yes," Yuna said. She felt embarrassed. 5 years was nothing compared to the thousands of years other species had been traveling between stars. "Do not look sad," Brix said, floating closer. "Everyone starts somewhere. Come, I will show you to the dining hall. You must be hungry." The dining hall was enormous. Hundreds of students sat at tables that changed shape to fit their bodies. Some students ate with mouths like hers. Others absorbed food through their skin. A few seemed to eat light itself. Brix helped her find food that humans could eat. The machine that made the food scanned Yuna first. It had never seen a human before. "What does your species eat?" the machine asked in a mechanical voice. "Plants and meat," Yuna said. "Cooked, please." The machine made strange noises. Finally, it produced something that looked almost like chicken and rice. It tasted like nothing Yuna had ever eaten, but it was not bad. At dinner, other students stared at her. Some pointed with whatever they used instead of fingers. A few came over to ask questions. "Is it true humans still use projectile weapons?" asked a creature covered in metal scales. "Do you really only live for 100 years? asked another that looked like it was made of crystal. "I heard humans cannot share thoughts. How do you communicate complex ideas?" asked a third alien with too many eyes. Yuna answered as best she could, but each question made her feel more different. More primitive. More alone. The next morning she went to her first class. Advanced quantum theory was taught by Professor Quinn, who looked like a giant praying mantis. His classroom had no chairs or desks. Students simply floated in the air while information appeared in their minds. Yuna was the only one who needed to sit down. She was the only one who needed to see the information with her eyes. She was the only one who had to write notes on actual paper. "Today we study the mathematics of hyperspace," Professor Quinn said. His voice clicked and buzzed. "Please integrate the following 17-dimensional equations." Numbers and symbols appeared in the air around Yuna. The other students solved them instantly. Their minds worked together like one big computer. Yuna stared at the floating math and understood nothing. "Miss Yuna," Professor Quinn said, "perhaps you should start with simpler concepts. Basic addition, maybe?" Some students laughed. The sound hurt worse than any punch Yuna had ever received. After class, she walked slowly back to her room. Other students moved past her like she was invisible. They talked in languages made of color, sound, and thought. She understood none of it. In her room, Yuna sat on her floating bed and looked out the window at the stars. They looked the same as they did from Earth. That was something at least. Tomorrow there would be more classes. More staring. More questions about primitive humans. Yuna closed her eyes and tried not to cry. She had wanted to make her family proud, but she was not sure she could survive even 1 week in this place. Outside her room, the station hummed with life and energy. Thousands of brilliant minds from across the galaxy worked and learned together. And in the middle of it all sat one small human girl, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. 3 weeks passed at the station. Yuna still struggled with most of her classes, but she had made a few friends. Brix the floating jellyfish always sat with her at meals. A small lizard-like creature named Kess helped her with homework. Even some of the other students had stopped staring at her like she was a zoo animal. Her favorite class was military history with Professor Quinn. Unlike the math and science classes, this one did not require a computer brain to understand. It was about wars and battles and how different species fought each other. Today we will study the Battle of Kepler Prime, Professor Quinn announced. His big insect eyes looked around the classroom. This battle happened 50 years ago. The hegemony attacked and won easily. We will see why. The lights dimmed. In the center of the room, a hologram appeared. It showed 2 fleets of spaceships facing each other among the stars. One fleet was red, one was blue. The hegemony is the red fleet, Professor Quinn explained. They are our enemy. They want to control all worlds in this part of the galaxy. The blue fleet tried to stop them. Watch what happened. The hologram began to move. The red ships flew forward in perfect straight lines. They formed neat rows like soldiers marching. The blue ships tried to fight back, but they were destroyed quickly. The battle was over in minutes. You see how the hegemony won, Professor Quinn said. Their formation was perfect. Their timing was exact. Their computers calculated every move. This is why they are dangerous. Yuna raised her hand slowly. Professor, I have a question. Yes, Miss Yuna? Why did the blue ships not attack from the sides? The red ships left their flanks wide open. A smaller, faster group could have gone around and hit them from behind while they were focused forward. The classroom went quiet. Professor Quinn's antenna twitched. Miss Yuna, military strategy is not about wild guessing. It requires precise calculation and logical planning. What you suggest is chaos. A student who looked like a walking tree spoke up. Humans think in random patterns. They cannot understand proper warfare. Another student, covered in metal scales, nodded. My species has studied war for 3,000 years. We know that discipline beats chaos every time. Yuna felt her face turn red, but she did not give up. But chaos can surprise the enemy. If they expect order, then disorder might work. Professor Quinn made a clicking sound that meant he was annoyed. Miss Yuna, please leave military thinking to those with superior minds. Your species has only been fighting with space weapons for 5 years. We have been doing this for millennia. Yuna sank down in her chair. Around her, other students whispered and pointed. She heard words like primitive and simple-minded. The rest of the class felt like it lasted forever. When class ended, Yuna walked slowly to the dining hall. Brix floated beside her, trying to cheer her up. Do not listen to them, Brix said. Your ideas were interesting. Interesting but wrong, Yuna replied. Maybe they are right. Maybe humans are too primitive to understand real strategy. They found their usual table in the corner of the dining hall. Kess was already there, eating something that looked like glowing soup. His lizard tail swished back and forth, which meant he was upset about something. Have you heard the news? Kess asked in his squeaky voice. What news? Brix asked. The hegemony attacked 3 neutral worlds yesterday. The battles were just like the one we studied in class. Same formation, same tactics. The defenders could not stop them. Yuna put down her food. 3 worlds. Yes. Thousands of people killed or captured. The hegemony fleet is moving toward this sector now. Some say they might even attack this station. Around the dining hall, other students talked in worried voices. Some species changed colors to show fear. Others made high-pitched sounds. Even the confident older students looked nervous. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She kept thinking about the battle hologram. The way the red ships moved in such perfect lines. The way they left their sides unprotected. The way no one seemed to notice. She got up and went to her desk. On her old paper notebook, she drew pictures of the battle. She drew the red ships in their neat rows. Then she drew small blue ships coming from different directions. From the sides, from above, from below. Hitting the enemy where they did not expect. It made sense to her, but she was just a human. What did she know about war? 2 days later, alarms began ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in every hallway. Students ran to their rooms or to emergency stations. Over the speakers, a voice announced, "Hegemony fleet detected entering system. All personnel prepare for possible evacuation." Yuna pressed her face to her room's window. In the distance, she could see bright flashes of light. Ships were fighting out there in the darkness. Bricks floated into her room without knocking. "The station shields are up," he said. "But the Hegemony has a big fleet. Much bigger than expected." "How many ships?" Yuna asked. "Over 200. And they are using the same formation as in Professor Quinn's class. The same one that worked at Kepler Prime." Yuna grabbed her notebook and ran toward the door. "I have to tell someone." "Tell them what?" "How to beat them." She ran through the halls toward the command center, Bricks floating behind her. But when she reached the security checkpoint, the guards would not let her pass. "Students are not allowed in the command center during emergencies," the guard said. He was from a species that looked like walking rocks. "But I know how to stop the enemy." "You are human," the guard replied. "Leave strategy to superior intellects." The station shook like an earthquake. Yuna fell out of her floating bed and hit the floor hard. Red lights flashed outside her window. The emergency alarms were so loud they hurt her ears. She ran to the window and looked out. Explosions lit up the darkness like fireworks. But these were not pretty fireworks. These were weapons that could destroy entire cities. The Hegemony fleet had arrived. Her door slid open. Bricks floated in quickly, his blue body trembling with fear. "The battle has started," he said. "The enemy ships are everywhere. More than anyone expected." "How many?" Yuna asked, pulling on her clothes. "Over 300 ships now. They keep coming through hyperspace. Our defense fleet only has 50 ships." The station shook again, harder this time. Books fell from Yuna's shelves. The lights went out for a few seconds, then came back on with a dim yellow glow. "Emergency power," Bricks explained. The main shields took a big hit. Through the walls, Yuna could hear running footsteps and shouting voices. Students were panicking. Some screamed in languages she did not understand. Others made sounds like crying, but from species that had no tears. "All students report to your assigned classroom immediately," a voice announced over the speakers. "This is not a drill. Report to your assigned classroom now." Yuna and Bricks ran through the hallways. Other students moved past them like a river of different shapes and colors. Some flew, some crawled, some rolled like wheels. All of them looked scared. Professor Quinn's classroom was packed. Students filled every space on the floor and in the air. The professor stood at the front, his insect body taller and more frightening than usual. "Students," he said in his clicking voice, "our station is under attack. The Hegemony fleet is too large for our defenses to stop. All escape pods have been destroyed. We cannot evacuate." A student who looked like a walking flower began to make high whistling sounds. Others joined in with their own species sounds of fear. The noise was terrible. "Quiet," Professor Quinn commanded. "We are not helpless. This station contains important research that cannot fall into enemy hands. We must defend it. Every student will help based on their species' natural abilities." He began pointing at different students. "Reptarians, you will man the energy weapons. Your scales protect you from radiation. Mentari, you will coordinate shield systems. Your minds process information faster than computers. Aquarians, you will manage communication networks. Your telepathy works even when electronics fail." One by one, Professor Quinn assigned the stronger, smarter, more advanced species to important defense jobs. They would fight the enemy. They would save the station. They were the heroes. Finally, he looked at Yuna and a few other students in the corner. These were the old students, the sick students, and the ones from species that were not good at fighting. "The rest of you will help with data backup and medical support. Stay in the safe areas. Do not interfere with military operations." Yuna raised her hand. "Professor, I want to help fight too." Some students laughed. The sound was worse than the explosions outside. "Miss Yuna," Professor Quinn said, "humans are not built for combat. You have no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no superior intelligence. You will be safer helping the doctors. But I studied the enemy formation. I know how they fight. I have ideas." "Ideas based on 5 years of space experience," Professor Quinn interrupted. "Leave strategy to those who understand it. Report to Medical Bay 7. The strong students left first. Yuna watched her classmates march away to defend the station. Bricks squeezed her shoulder with one of his soft arms. "I am sorry," he said. "I wish I could stay with you, but my species is needed for communications. I understand, Yuna said, though it hurt to watch her only real friend float away to join the real defenders. Medical Bay 7 was in the center of the station, far from the fighting. It was supposed to be the safest place. Yuna and 12 other students sat around waiting for injured people to arrive. Most of the other students were very old or very young. One was missing an arm. Another could barely walk. The station kept shaking. Through the metal walls they could hear the sounds of battle. Energy weapons firing. Metal being torn apart. Sometimes screams. A doctor who looked like a walking octopus gave them simple jobs. Carry supplies. Comfort the wounded. Stay out of the way. For 2 hours Yuna carried bandages and water. She helped students who had been hurt in the attacks. She listened to the battle reports on the speakers. Shield generators at 60% power. Sections 4 and 5 have lost artificial gravity. Enemy boarding parties detected on level 3. Each report made things sound worse. The hegemony was winning. The station's defenses were failing. Her friends were out there fighting and dying while she sat in safety doing nothing. Then she heard something that made her blood turn cold. Defense Command requests immediate evacuation. Our tactical computers cannot calculate a winning strategy. The enemy formation is too perfect. We estimate station will fall within 4 hours. 4 hours. That was all the time they had left. Yuna stood up suddenly, dropping the medical supplies she was carrying. The old students looked at her with confusion. "Where are you going?" asked the octopus doctor. "To end this war," Yuna said and ran toward the door. Yuna ran through the shaking hallways toward the command center. The station groaned and twisted around her like a wounded animal. Sparks fell from broken lights. The floor tilted as the artificial gravity systems failed in some sections. She reached the security checkpoint again. The same rock-like guard stood there, but now he looked worried. Behind him, she could see the command center through the open doors. Officers shouted orders while computers showed the battle outside. "Student, return to your assigned area," the guard said, but his voice was not as strong as before. "The station is dying," Yuna replied. "What harm can one human do now?" The guard looked at her for a long moment. Another explosion shook the walls. Pieces of the ceiling fell down between them. He stepped aside. "Do not touch anything important," he said. Yuna ran into the command center. It was chaos. Officers from dozens of species worked at control panels. Some had too many arms, others had no arms at all. They spoke in different languages, but all of them sounded scared. At the center of the room stood a huge display screen. It showed the battle outside. Red dots were hegemony ships. Blue dots were station defenders. There were 10 red dots for every blue dot, and the blue dots kept disappearing. "Shield generators down to 30%, someone shouted. "Hull breach on level 8, called another voice. "Our fighters cannot break through their formation," said a third officer. "Their pattern is perfect. No weaknesses." Yuna stared at the display screen. The red ships moved in straight lines just like in Professor Quinn's class. Perfect rows. Perfect spacing. Perfect timing. It was beautiful and terrifying. But it was also familiar. She had seen this exact formation in her history books back on Earth. Not space history. Human history. This was how ancient human armies used to fight thousands of years ago. March forward in lines. Overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers. Never break formation. "That is not alien warfare," she whispered to herself. "That is human warfare." An officer with 4 eyes noticed her standing there. "Who is this student? Remove her immediately." "Wait," Yuna said loudly. "I know how to beat them." The command center went quiet for a moment. Then several officers started laughing. The sound was not nice. "Child, we have the best military computers in the galaxy," said the 4-eyed officer. "If our systems cannot find a solution, there is no solution." "Your computers think like you do," Yuna said, walking toward the main control panel. "They look for logical patterns. But the enemy is not using logic. They are using human tactics. Old human tactics." "Impossible," said another officer. "Humans have only been in space for 5 years." "Exactly." Yuna reached the control panel and put her hands on it. "So the enemy learned our fighting style from our history, not from space battles. They learned how ancient humans fought on planets with swords and spears. But I know what beats that kind of fighting." "Remove her," the 4-eyed officer commanded. But before anyone could grab her, Yuna's fingers were already moving across the controls. The station's computer systems were designed to be logical and safe. Every command had to be approved. Every action had to make sense. Yuna ignored all of that. She rerouted power from life support systems to weapons. She turned off safety protocols that had protected the station for 50 years. She made the defensive turrets fire in random directions instead of calculated patterns. She even opened the garbage disposal systems and shot trash at the enemy ships. "Stop her," officers shouted. "She is destroying our defensive grid." But something strange was happening on the display screen. The red ships had stopped advancing. Their perfect formation was breaking apart. Some ships slowed down. Others speeded up. They were confused. "Their computers cannot predict random actions," Yuna said, still working at the controls. "They expect us to follow rules. But humans do not always follow rules." She activated maintenance drones and sent them flying at enemy ships like missiles. She made the station's lights flash in ways that hurt alien eyes. She even played loud human music through the communication systems. None of these things should have worked as weapons. But they were so unexpected that the enemy fleet did not know how to respond. "Impossible," breathed the four-eyed officer. "Their formation is actually falling apart." "Now we attack," Yuna said. She turned to face the room full of alien officers. "But not the way your computers want to attack. We attack like ancient humans. Like barbarians. Like people who fight dirty and break every rule." She pointed to the screen. "Send small groups of fighters from different directions. Do not coordinate with each other. Let each group attack whatever target looks good to them. Make it chaos." "That goes against every principle of military science," protested an officer who looked like a metal crab. Another explosion shook the station. On the screen, more blue dots disappeared. "Your military science is losing," Yuna said simply. "Try my way." The command center was quiet except for the sounds of battle. Finally, the four-eyed officer nodded. "Do it," he ordered. "Release all fighter groups. No coordination. No battle plan. Attack at will." On the screen, tiny blue dots scattered in all directions. They moved like angry bees, striking randomly at the red formation. And slowly, impossibly, the red ships began to retreat. The hegemony fleet broke apart like glass hitting stone. Their perfect formation turned into scattered groups of confused ships. Without their careful patterns, they could not work together. One by one, they jumped back into hyperspace and fled. In the command center, nobody spoke for a long time. Officers stared at the display screen where red dots disappeared into empty space. The battle was over. The station was safe. And it was all because of one human girl with crazy ideas. The four-eyed officer turned to look at Yuna. His expression was different now. Before, he had looked at her like she was a pet or a child. Now he looked at her like she was dangerous and important. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. Yuna sat down in a chair. Her hands were shaking from excitement and fear. The enemy fought like ancient humans. But ancient humans lost battles too. They lost when people fought them in unexpected ways. With tricks and surprises and chaos. "Your species has been in space for only 5 years," said the metal crab officer. "How do you know so much about warfare?" "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years," Yuna replied. "We got very good at it. Maybe too good." News of the victory spread through the station fast. Within an hour, Yuna could not walk anywhere without being stopped. Students who had ignored her for months now wanted to talk to her. Teachers who had treated her like a child now asked her questions. Professor Quinn found her in the dining hall that evening. The giant mantis sat across from her, his insect head tilted to one side. "Miss Yuna," he said, "I owe you an apology. And an explanation." "You do not have to explain anything," Yuna said. She was tired and still confused by all the attention. "I must," Professor Quinn continued. "For 3,000 years, warfare in this galaxy has followed mathematical rules. Ships fight in formations calculated by computers. Battles are won by whoever has better numbers and better technology. What you did today should not have worked. But it did work." "Yes. And that frightens us." Professor Quinn's antenna twitched. "If random actions can defeat careful planning, then everything we know about war is wrong. Everything we have taught for centuries is useless." Yuna looked around the dining hall. Other students sat at nearby tables, but they were all listening to her conversation with the professor. Rix floated close by, his body glowing with excitement. "Maybe it is not useless," Yuna said finally. "Maybe it is just incomplete. Your way works against enemies who think like you. My way works against enemies who do not expect chaos. We need both ways." Professor Quinn was quiet for a moment. Then he made a sound that might have been laughter. You suggest that advanced civilizations should learn from primitive warfare? I suggest that smart people should use every tool that works. 3 days later, Yuna received a message that changed her life. The Galactic Defense Council wanted to meet with her. They had questions about human military thinking. They wanted to understand how chaos could defeat order. The meeting was held in a room full of the most important military leaders in the galaxy. Beings from hundreds of species sat around a circular table. Some looked like animals from Earth. Others looked like nothing she had ever imagined. All of them stared at her like she was the most interesting thing in the universe. "Miss Yuna," said the council leader, a creature that looked like living liquid metal, "we have studied your victory at Station Kepler 442. Our computers confirmed that your tactics should not have worked. But they did work," Yuna said simply. "Yes. This creates a problem for us. The hegemony has been using human military history to defeat our fleets across the galaxy. Until now we could not find a counter-strategy. Our computers could not understand their seemingly random attacks. The liquid metal being flowed into a different shape. We believe you can help us. Not just with this war but with military thinking in general. We want you to teach us how humans fight." Yuna looked around the room at all the alien faces. "You want me to teach you?" "Yes. We are creating a new school program called Human Strategic Studies. You would be the first teacher. Students from across the galaxy would come to learn from you." 6 months later, Yuna stood in front of a classroom full of alien students. Some of them were her old classmates from Professor Quinn's class. Others were military officers from distant worlds. All of them had notebooks ready and were paying close attention to every word she said. "Today we will learn about something humans call guerrilla warfare," Yuna announced. "It is fighting without rules. It is how small groups can defeat large armies. It is why sometimes the weakest side wins." In the front row, Brix floated with his arms moving excitedly. Beside him, Kess the lizard took careful notes on his electronic tablet. Even the walking tree student who had once mocked her for being primitive now listened with respect. "The most important thing to remember," Yuna continued, "is that your enemy expects you to be logical. They prepare for your best moves. But they cannot prepare for your worst moves. Sometimes the stupidest plan is the smartest plan." After class, Professor Quinn approached her desk. The old mantis had become her assistant teacher, helping to translate human concepts for alien minds. "Your students learn quickly," he said. "They are good students," Yuna replied. "Even if they do not think like humans, they can learn to fight like humans." That evening, Yuna stood at her office window and looked out at the stars. Human ships now patrolled alongside alien vessels around the station. Their movements looked random and chaotic compared to the neat formations of other species. But that chaos was their strength. Her mother's message from Earth still played on her desk computer: "Make us proud." Yuna smiled. She had done more than make humans proud. She had made them necessary. The galaxy was a big place full of brilliant minds and ancient wisdom. But sometimes, Yuna had learned, the newest and most primitive ideas were exactly what everyone needed.